Hello, welcome to this new tutorial. In this tutorial, we shall talk about power, and following are the major points which will help us to understand what power stands in political science. So, first would be meaning and definition of power. Second, differences between power and force. Then, characteristics of power, followed by sources of power, then types of power, and last, forms of power. So, let us begin with the first, meaning and definitions of power. Well, the concept of power occupied a respectable position in the modern discussion of politics since the beginning of 20th century. In the words of Robert Dahl, power, influence, and authority are commonplace words that ordinary people share with political practitioners and political theorists. Therefore, power is central to the study of politics, and politics is nothing but struggle for power. According to Hubbard and Edward, power is ability to influence the behavior of others in accordance with one's own end. Whereas, according to Hans Morgenthau, by power we means the power of man over the minds and action of other men. MacIver was of the view that by the possession of power we mean the capacity to centralize, regulate, or direct the behavior of person or things. And at last, according to George, power is capacity to impose one's will over another by reliance on effective sanctions in case of non-compliance. So, let us discuss about the second point, the difference between power and force. In the view of Robert, force is manifest of power. Force means the reduction or limitation of closure of even total elimination of alternatives to the social action of one person or group by another person or group. Just to explain this with an example, when a man surrenders his money to a dacoit in order to save his life, the dacoit has achieved his objective by merely a threat of force without using it. Whereas, when the dacoit has to restore to actual force in order to snatch the money and other belongings, he has used force. In short, the actual manifestation of power is force. Hence, force is power in action, or force is power exercised. Now, let us talk about the characteristics of power. So, here are the 5 major characteristics of power. Point number 1, power is the capacity to influence the behavior of others. Point number 2, power is situational. Point number 3, power depends on its use. Point number 4, power is not absolute. And last, power has 2 aspects, actual and potential. So let us elaborate these characteristics in details. Let us take first, power is the capacity to influence the behavior of others. Well, an individual or a nation wield power to the extent he is capable of changing other behavior according to his wish. Therefore, power is the capacity of an individual to get things done from other according to his desire. Moving on to point number 2, power is situational. Well, it depends on situation, circumstances, and position. For example, a teacher may exercise power on his student while he is in college, but not after he has left the college. Another example, an officer may use power and authority on his subordinate, but they may not accept his power when he retires. Therefore, power depends upon the situation, circumstances, and position. Let us move to point number 3. Power depends on its use. Here we have a wonderful example. The President of India has power, but he does not use them as he is merely a constitutional head. Whereas the President of US has vast power and he actually uses them. So in short, it is the usage of the power which defines the entire aspects of power. Moving on to point number 4, power is not absolute. Here we have an example. If an individual has a power, it is essential that there should be someone who is prepared to accept its use as well. In short, power depends upon time. Power relation change with the changing circumstances. Therefore, power is not absolute. And the last characteristics, power has two aspects, actual and potential. Well, there is the actual power of a person and a community, and also the potential power of a person and community. For example, by actual power we mean that power which a person or a community actually uses, whereas potential power is that power which a person or a community can exercise, although the same may not be actually exercised. To summarize it, actual powers are the real powers which man exercise, and potential powers are those powers which he or she may exercise according to the time and situation. Okay, so moving on to the next subtopic, sources of power. Now following are the major points which will help us to understand what are the sources of power. Point number 1, knowledge. The major source of power is knowledge, which help us to move from darkness to light. It helps in investigating, learning, thinking and development of mind and soul. The capacity for leadership comes through knowledge. Hence, knowledge is an important source of power. Moving on to point number 2, organization. When people work together, their power and strength increases. For example, when a person enjoys the support of the leader of an organization, his power increases. Political parties are organized to capture power and exercise the same. Status of an individual always matter in society, and therefore particularly economic status helps a person to attain power. A rich man can put pressure even on the highest officials and ministers and get things done in his own way. Example, the status of a person in the religious field is also a source of power as the followers of that particular religion supports him. Moving on to point number 4, skill of an individual. Skills of an individual always matter. Therefore, a tactful person can get more power than others. Moving on to point number 5, faith or belief. Power cannot be based on repression or brute force. It is necessary to win over the faith of the people also. Example, a government enjoying public faith is more powerful than others. This example basically talks about a faith or a belief which government has because of the public who by and large support particular government. Point number 6 is authority. Authority means legitimate power. When a person occupies a political or legal post legitimately, his power increases automatically. Authority not only adds to power but also makes it effective. For example, when a person becomes a minister and get the authority of a minister, he becomes more powerful than others. Moving on to point number 7, power is the mass media. Well, media always enjoys special place within the society and therefore they enjoys a lot of power. And therefore, the owners and editors of the newspapers can easily influence others and are admittedly powerful. And the last source of power is personality of a person. Personality may be due to his wisdom, courage, oratory, organizational ability, and capacity to take quick and proper decision. Therefore, a leader who possesses a charismatic personality is more powerful than others. Now, let us talk about types of power. And following are the 5 points which will help us to understand the different types of power. First, money. Finance is considered as effective determinant of power. In modern days, it is financial strength that make person, political parties and nation powerful. Money excelled over the resources in the capitalist system and thus is an important source of power. Moving on to point number 2, military. Machiavelli advocated strengthening military capacity to make state powerful. Therefore, kingdom in past and nation state in modern day maintain big armies and advocate advanced weapons in their arsenal to frighten adversaries and to secure their territories. Point number 3, social status. Higher social status with special reference to gender, class, caste, clan and race has enabled the person to impose his will on them. Thus, higher social status in the social hierarchy is desired by person and groups to enjoy the privileges of power holder. Moving on to point number 4, numerical strength. In democratic polity, the number of the followers or members of particular group determines the power of the party, leader and organization. Therefore, elections are won and governments are run on the support of the people. Hence, decisions are made and influenced on the basis of the support enjoyed from the people. And last, quality of human resources. Education, committed and loyal human resource is considered as strength of the great nation. Uneducated and corrupt human resource are liability over the national resources. Therefore, the quality of human resources adds to the strength of the nation as well as community. And now, finally, the last subtopic, forms of power. Here we have 6 different forms of power which shall help us to understand what are the forms of power. Point number 1, coercive. A coercive relationship exists between A and B. When A gets B to do what he wants by threatening to make things unpleasant for B if he does not comply. Basically, coercive relationship implies conflict and deprivation. Point number 2, inductive power. An inductive power relationship exists when A gets B to do what he wants by providing him something attractive or by offering a kind of awards. Point number 3 is reactional power. In a reactional power relationship, A exerts power over B or B does what A wants, not because of inducement or constraint, but because B hopes or expects that A will help him if he complies or will harm him if he does not comply. Therefore, power relationship between superior and their subordinate is usually reactional because subordinate believes that they may prosper or win promotion by complying with the wishes of the superior. Moving on to point number 4, impedimental power. In the case of impedimental power, A gets B to comply with his wishes by putting impediments or obstacle in the attainment of his goal. Example, a minister may prevent a contractor from doing his building work by withdrawing the no objection certificate. Moving on to point number 5, attrahent power. A power relationship in which A exercises power over B because the latter loves or is impressed or attracted by his personality and desire to imitate or obey him is called attrahent power. In such relationship, there is no conflict or tensions is involved as power is willingly conceded by B to A. Example, the power of charismatic leaders is generally of this kind. And last, persuasive power. Persuasive power is that power which may be exercised by A over B and which is based on rational or non-rational argument. And the best example here is husband and wife argument, which sometimes are based on rational and non-rational argument. I hope you have understood the power and different facets of the power. See you soon in next tutorial. Till then, take care.